Welcome all the viewers today, and we have a special guests today. We have our MLA Nathan Cooper, and thank you for bringing along your father with you, and I hope you enjoy the spot on our council meeting with Nathan speaking. And we have our staff sergeants, and he'll be introducing some other members today. And we're getting started. It is 1 p.m. And today, all viewers, thank you once again for joining us today on February 26th. I call the meeting to order. It is 1 p.m. and I'm speaking to added items at this time. I do have one added item to the agenda, and it is a correspondence with regards to Fire Services Training Grant, and I will be adding it to 7A, item C, under the correspondence we already have. Are there any further added items? All right, seeing none then, please, I'd ask for a motion, please, to adopt the agenda as amended. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we accept the agenda as amended for regular council meeting for Monday, February 26, 2004 at 1 p.m. in council chambers.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. We also have, I am looking for consent, please, for the adoption of the February 12th, 2024 regular council meeting minutes. And I see no questions. So we have consent for the February 12th, 2024 minutes. Moving down now to item 3 in our agenda, please. Page 7 of your agenda, delegation. Our Minister, MLA Nathan Cooper, and he knows where he is going to be today. Turn the microphone on, and the room is yours in 15 minutes or whatever you can make.
Unless you have many questions, I hope not to take that much time of your meeting today. I know that you always have a full and robust agenda, but thank you so much, Mayor and Council, administration, for having me here today. The purpose of my visit is largely just to touch base, try to do this at least annually, sometimes biannually, and often around the legislative session, which many of you will know begins on Wednesday. I'm actually on my way to Edmonton today to take care of some pre-session organization that needs to take place over the next 48 hours, and then the legislature will open on Wednesday, and the provincial budget will be presented on Thursday at 3 p.m. And so it's obviously a very important time of the year for the provincial government as the government lays out their priorities for the next 12 months and beyond. And I know that some of you will have had the opportunity to see some of the comments that the Premier has made publicly over the last number of days with respect to what people can anticipate in the budget, an ongoing commitment to a strong fiscal position here in the province of Alberta. And of course, that always means balancing long-term savings, and the Premier has commented about a commitment that the government continues to make to the Heritage Savings Trust Fund, as well as having fully funded and robust programs that meet the needs of Albertans, all inside the context of a balanced budget. And as you all know, with the ever-changing price of oil, as well as the international geopolitical climate, sometimes balancing all that can present an ongoing challenge, and I'm certain that the Minister of Finance and others are up to that task. So look forward to seeing exactly how that's going to impact our community directly. I know that inside the constituency of Old Stitsbury Three Hills, there are a number of projects who are awaiting approval from the provincial government, and so it's my hope that we will see some of those. I can assure you we won't see all of those because the province also has a duty to balance the complex requests from all across the province, so we do our very best to advocate for the constituency. And often we, as the community here in Olds knows, have been successful at receiving some grants. And I know that not everyone is happy all of the time, but we do our very best. So appreciate the opportunity to come and visit with you a little bit. I will turn it over to you if you have any questions or any in particular issues from the community's perspective that you would like me to raise directly with the Premier or any members of Cabinet. I would be happy to do that on your behalf as well.
Thank you. And just for our viewers, I'd just like to remind everyone that you were elected to the Legislative Assembly of Alberta representing the constituency for Olds Disbury Three Hills, and you've also the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly of Alberta from 2019 to current. So just for your information, and I'll open the floor to council if you have any questions at this time. Deputy Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and through you to Mr. Cooper. Just to pick up on your comments relative to funding and infrastructure, and I will just, and I'll allow my colleagues to chime in as well, but I will just make a plea on behalf of this council, this administration, and our town that we do need funding very much. And I'm thinking and talking specifically about LGFF. And if I understand the numbers correctly from the town's perspective, what was previously MSI and is now LGFF, I think our grants, our monies have decreased about 40% from 2016 to 2024. So something in the neighborhood of 2.1 million from the provincial government down to just something a little over 1.2 million. And again, my plea is, you know, we've got significant infrastructure challenges, as do all of the municipalities in Alberta. You've touched on the Balancing Act, but you know, whether it's for us infiltration and inflows and below the ground, whether it's above the ground with roads and that type of infrastructure, we are stretched thin, and our taxpayers are stretched thin trying to make a go of it in today's economy and world with all the pressures that we know are out there financially. So when you're interacting and meeting with the Treasury Board folks and the Honorable Minister Nate Horner and Mr. Neudorf from the affordability side, I just plea that you keep Olds in mind there amongst all the other municipalities in Alberta, because we are stretched, and our staffing levels are at a bare minimum. When we benchmark to comparable municipalities, our staffing is at a bare minimum. We are doing what we can with what we have, and not acting frivolously in any area, whether it's staffing, whether it's how we spend and what we spend. But I know A.B. Muniz has asked and advocated, I think, something like 1.75 billion for municipalities. I think 2024 is at about 722 million. I do get concerned, and I'm also, on the same token, applaud the Premier for the fiscal aspect, but there's also the reality of running a municipality, and we are stretched.
Thank you, Deputy Wilson. I will ask Mr. Cooper if he'd like to reply to that, and then I'll go to another question.
Absolutely. You know, I have a keen understanding of the challenges that municipalities face as a former municipal councillor, and creating that balance is the biggest challenge that we face as a provincial government as well, in terms of how do we work closely with municipal partners to ensure that they can operate in a meaningful and impactful way, and also try to create formulas that are acceptable all across the province. And it is a impossible chore to create solutions where every municipality has all of their needs met, and every municipality is happy even with the way that the province determines who gets what funding. But as the Minister of Municipal Affairs often talks about, our job is to try to listen and hear from municipalities, best meet the needs that we can with the resources available. And we certainly appreciate the way that the overwhelming majority of municipalities function as leanly and as appropriately as possible.
Thank you very much. I would keep in mind that if I want to answer all your questions, to keep them to a minimum. I believe Councillor Cummings and then Councillor Ryan.
Thanks a lot, Nathan. Quick question here. So I received an invite a little while ago for an event in Sylvan Lake in March. It was a discussion on political parties and municipal government. And better be careful here. Devin Dreeshen. I'm not sure if he's a Minister Dreeshen. Minister Dreeshen is speaking at that event. Can we take that as the UCP party's endorsement of municipal parties, or is that Devin's endorsement of municipal parties?
It would seem to me that that question would be best voiced to Devin. All members speak at a wide variety of things. Some of those things we fully support, some of those things we don't support, and some of those things, some places we speak at, those who are we speaking to entirely despise and don't like us. And so there's a wide variety of things that members do, that I do for a variety of reasons. I think as recently as this past weekend, the Premier has publicly spoken or mused about legislation that would create a pathway for political parties to exist inside the municipal world. But I also believe that she has spoken to those political parties not being affiliated wings of provincial political parties. So municipalities could, or individuals in municipalities could associate in whatever ways that they wanted at a local level through a political party. And I believe that she mused about that, enabling legislation that would allow that to happen could be seen as early as this upcoming legislative session. And I'm sure that there's a wide variety of opinions on whether or not that should or shouldn't be allowed. I think some of the key things there is that they're not an extension of the UCP as you've identified as Devin, but that individuals and communities may want to associate together as a political party.
Thank you very much. That was a difficult question for sure. Councillor Ryan?
Thank you very much, Mayor Dahl, through you to Mr. Cooper. I was wondering what your thoughts are, or if you've heard anything with regards to a comment that was made by the Minister of Municipal Affairs, Rick McIver, at one point, who had mentioned about one-off grants, so grants that would be available to communities if they showed, extreme need for something outside of the LGFF/MSI. For example, we had a road repair that needed to be done, and it far exceeded the cost of the amount of money that we had budgeted for. In fact, probably would exceed whatever amount of money we would have got from LGFF this year. So I'm just wondering, have you heard anything with regards to these one-offs, or do you support that idea?
I haven't heard, so I'm not familiar with what the minister has or hasn't said. I think that, in an ideal scenario, the province would recognize that there are circumstances that are beyond the control of anyone, and to find some way to partner in that. Similarly, we do one-off grants in a number of different areas. The Water for Life grant, that was the pipeline, for lack of a better description that that the province gave here last April, I believe, is a one-off grant where there's lots of individual communities who are applying for a total bucket of funds, and those are often based on need and timeliness and all sorts of different criteria. So I haven't heard him say that they aren't going to go forward in any capacity. I don't know if that's what he was implying or not, but I can also appreciate, and one of the challenges, of course, from the provincial levels of government is, from time to time, municipalities who haven't managed some of their resources as well as others end up in an emergency situation, and then the province has to come alongside that municipality and fix whatever the emergency was. And at the same time, there are other municipalities who are not getting themselves into emergency situations who might like to have access to those same funds, but because they've done a better job. So trying to minimize those one-offs, I can understand why that may be a good idea, but also recognize that there are lots of variables beyond anyone's control that sometimes we need to be partners on.
Thank you. I have three councillors. Would you like left? Councillor Blatz, Walsh, or Daly. Would you like to speak? Councillor Daly?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Through you to MLA Cooper. I appreciate all your advocacy that you do for Olds, Three Hills, Didsbury, and I appreciate the work that you do as far as representing us in the provincial legislature. My question is, as far as getting ministers here to present to us and also to look to see what's happening, as mentioned by Councillor Wilson, the dire straits that we're into financially and some of the projects that we have to do to not only keep our community safe and healthy, but also environmentally safe and healthy as well. And it'd be really nice just to have somebody here on the ground to actually see what's going on, not only in our municipality, but also in other municipalities across the province. And just wondering if that's a possibility that we could go through you to canvas to have some of those ministers, maybe even the Premier, come down and have a visit with us and just talk about what's happening within these municipalities, within your constituency, as well as the rest of the province.
Yeah, sure. More than happy. It's often best if we try to identify a couple of individual ministers that we'd like to have. Minister Furr is going to be in Olds next week. I know that the Premier is going to be in the constituency the first week of March, way over on the other side of the constituency, so I appreciate that it's not here in the community. But we've had a number of ministers in Olds, Didsbury, Three Hills on a fairly regular basis. More than happy to identify whether we'd like to try to get Minister McIver to come or Minister Horner directly and have them come tour the community or put a roundtable together or whatever you think would best meet the needs of the community. Super happy to do that. The mayor or CO Williams is happy to, or more than welcome to contact me directly, and particularly if we're a little bit flexible in our dates. There's lots of, Minister Sawney was here in the last 6 weeks as well. So there's lots of them driving past. Great opportunity because we're only 5 kilometers off the highway to try to organize it into their day for them to pop in and visit with us. So happy to do that.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. We have about 5 minutes left. Was there a question from either Councillor Walsh or Blatz? Okay.
No, thank you, Mayor Dahl. I did have a question relating to, the proposed legislation that could be coming forward with changes to the local election act, but you did a very good answer for us, so thank you for that.
Very good. We've done a round table already with everyone. I did see one last question now from Deputy Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and again through you to Mr. Cooper. Can you shed any light or any comment on the affordability initiatives that Minister Newdorf is looking at? I know the Premier has ruled out income tax relief, at least in the immediate term. Again, everybody in Alberta is stretched to the limits. Electrical pricing, AESO is a topic of hot discussion and debate. Any comments you can share around the affordability review and when we might expect to see some relief of some type?
Well, I can say with some level of confidence that the first piece on Minister Newdorf's side with respect to power, electricity, and renewables, the end of, so in the first number of days of March, the minister will be talking specifically about the pause on renewables and what the new framework looks like going forward. And then I believe the review on some of the affordability issues and more broadly is scheduled to be in the second or third week, where he'll be able to provide more public comments. And I haven't been that closely involved in that project, so I'm not in a position to sort of even speculate on exactly where they're going to end on a bunch of those things. But I am, more than happy to report that we've spent some significant time highlighting a number of these challenges that Albertans are facing. I had a meeting just last week with members from the Legion here in town, and the impact that, in particular, distribution costs and the net negative impact, particularly on rural Alberta when we compare it to our urban neighbors. And in rural Alberta, we pay a disproportionately high of distribution fees to get our power to our homes. And while I appreciate there's less homes out there and more lines, but the electricity grid is a provincial-wide asset. And on most provincial-wide assets, we don't have a negative impact to a smaller group of users in the same way that we do in the power grid. So for whatever it's been worth, I have spent a significant amount of time advocating to the minister about just how unfair this particular piece of the electricity market is and how it would have a real net positive to rural residents. And so I hope that that's a part of the solution that we see with respect to affordable electricity prices, and in particular rural Alberta. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and all the best with my good friends from the RCMP. I'm sure Warren will be nice and easy on you guys as well.
Thank you very much, MLA Cooper, for your time to update council and our citizenry, and safe travels.
Take care.
Thank you. Could I get a motion, please? Thank you. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that Mr. Cooper be thanked for attending our February 26th regular council meeting and speaking to council. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? All in favor. Thank you. And item 3B, please, page 8 of your agenda is the RCMP quarterly report. And are you both speaking today? Oh, please come up to the, sure. Staff Sergeant, yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
All right. So, good afternoon. I have with me Sergeant Randy Poon, who has been assisting me at the Olds Detachment. Unfortunately, Sergeant Greg Beach has had a personal illness, and we've been lucky enough to get Sergeant Poon from Calgary to assist us up until most likely the end of April, although we are trying maybe end of May. So he's been of great assistance. I've known Randy since Lac La Biche, 1999-2000, when we were working together, and Sergeant Poon has over 24 years? Yeah, 24 years service, so I got a member with extensive experience both in provincial municipal policing as well as federal. So he's been of great help on the operations side. And he also
Welcome.
prepared the third quarter report for me that you received. Thank you. So, subject to your review of the report, I'm here to answer any questions.
Well, thank you. I trust that our council members did have an opportunity to view their report, and I would open the floor for questions then at this point. Must have been a really good report.
Okay, so, well, Randy did it this time, so
Well, maybe that's,
maybe that
it's-
was the key, right?
It's very accurate, for sure. Okay, we'll start with Deputy Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and through you to the Staff Sergeant. Just a question, I'm not sure what page I'm on, page 11 perhaps, the statistical summary. Could you just talk a little bit to the total provincial traffic? The spike in the number there, and I know you mentioned it in the narrative, it has to do with the collaborative team effort that was started, I think, in December around some heightened enforcement. But can you talk a little bit more about that spike and about the initiative that had been underway?
Absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely. So last time I met with council, we discussed traffic initiatives. I had with me Constable Mitch Price, who specifically spoke about the Safe Roads, Safe Nights program that we were operating under the detachment. It was also in collaboration with municipal enforcement. We started at the beginning of December, and we're looking at most likely ending the program this month. So for the month, the other thing I'd like to point out too is on your report, it says Q4 stats. And what's interesting about this is the actual report itself is Q3 because we operate under a fiscal year from April 1st to March 31st. March 31st, 30th. Whereas this is Q4 report, which operates under a calendar year. So the stats that you see before you are reflective of January to December of 2023. And we've doubled our provincial traffic stats in that time. A large part has to do with just the extra effort put towards provincial traffic offenses within the town of Olds. And we started the program which during the day was focusing on traffic infractions within the town, intersections, stop signs, speeding, seatbelts, distracted driving are the big ones. There's also some other ones, like unregistered motor vehicle, no insurance, that kind of thing that we looked at. So we had approximately 2 shifts per week. There was one that had 4 within December, and as a result, that gave us quite a spike in traffic offenses. It wasn't that necessarily people were doing more, it's just they were being caught. That's not to say that we didn't also give out a lot of, use those as educational opportunities and give out warnings depending on the circumstances. Oh, sorry, and the Safe Nights program was focusing on impaired drivers.
Thank you very much. And we'll just do a supplementary, and then we'll go to Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and truly a supplemental comment, perhaps a question as well, is, so no, thanks for that clarification, because we have, and we do hear, and we've discussed with you before, feedback from our residents around visibility and traffic enforcement, so as much as I don't like to see a spike in those type of numbers, you're right, it's indicative of enforcement, which is addressing some of our residents' concerns. So my question is, would we see, and you mentioned it's probably going to conclude here in the next month, so I would assume we feel the program was successful, and do we see it perhaps being initiated again at some point in the future?
Absolutely. Yes, the program in my mind was a very successful program. It certainly indicated that the town of Olds doesn't really have a large traffic problem. Yes, we doubled our stats, but generally the members were reporting that there wasn't much going on, especially in the presence of a police car. People drive absolutely incredibly well when there's a police car near them. So these were the people that were maybe not paying attention, and we were able to identify them. But certainly, I had every single member reported back to me that generally it was very hard to locate a provincial traffic offender within the town of Olds. However, they did, and as a result, the stats did increase. Now, to answer your question, we are planning on having it periodically throughout the year. It may not be in a 3-month chunk, it may be like a 1-month project. You know, it's something that we can look at perhaps maybe come spring, perhaps when school starts, and maybe towards a festive season. We will have those come back.
Noted, for sure.
All right, just throwing it out there.
Thank you very much, and we'll move to, Director Andu would like to say a word, and then we'll go to Councillor Daly.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Just to add to Staff Sergeant Wright's comments, the conversations that him and I have had regarding the Safe Roads program, Safe Nights program, and some crime reduction initiatives, what we are working on this year collaboratively is to orchestrate some plans that we will obviously communicate through council about those different initiatives at different times. And we're trying to do that within the budget constraints that we have with the funds allocated to the detachment for member resources. And so there's a little bit of flexibility there, and where we can utilize them to the utmost of efficiency and see dramatic results where, again, this is Staff Sergeant Wright's prerogative, is that he sees where we have areas that need attention and focus, and then he wants to be able to allocate those resources to see a dramatic impact. And so the example would be, you know, drug enforcement initiatives or prolific offenders, warrant roundups and things like that. And so I think there's some exciting things that show a lot of benefit and fruit to the community that will be coming forward throughout the calendar year for you.
Councillor Daly?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and through you to Staff Sergeant Wright. I was reading in your preamble of your report about the use of the drone and the new technology that's happening in your area of law enforcement. I was just wondering, how does this pertain to the community of Olds, and what uses do you see in our community for such technology?
Yes, so the drone itself is of great assistance in terms of dealing with a high-risk situation. I'm not saying that we have a lot of them within the town of Olds, but they do happen rarely. And when that does happen, we're able to bring in a drone and be able to survey the area from above and locate maybe the offending party and safely apprehend them. They're also of great assistance in terms of search and rescue. You have a lost child, and we're able to put the drone in the air, and they can cover a lot more ground more quickly than we can. In terms of search, if we're doing a search of a location in Olds pursuant to a warrant, it's also great assistance to put the drone in the air to have an aerial survey of the place that we're going to in case we have any surprises, and we're able to safely map out a plan to enter the property and do what we need to do. So we're using technology to the best of our advantage. There's many applications in terms of traffic collisions, in terms of I don't know, just it's a new tool in our toolbox, and we don't have one ourselves, the RCMP in Olds. We don't have one, we just have access to them, and we call upon them when required. So.
The RCMP dogs work and know how to work with search and drones?
I would imagine that the drone program is implemented into the police dog service, and certainly in high-risk situations, all hands on deck in terms of the emergency response team, which do have a drone.
Thank you. Councillor Cummings has a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Staff Sergeant, statistics are fun, and you've alluded to it a couple of times,
Right.
that a lot of times crime statistics are driven by enforcement. More time to enforce a particular stat-driven number, you get more stats. You've said that almost every time you come talk to us, and I agree 100%. The only one I really look at here often is the total MVC section.
MVCs?
motor vehicle collisions and injuries. And all of the statistics here lead me to believe, like you have said before, we really don't have unsafe roads. But we have to respond to our citizens' concerns, anecdotal concerns, that there's a serious crime or serious life and injury concerns about car driving in our town. The other half of the community that I speak to about crime in Olds is the business community. Being a business owner myself in the Chamber of Commerce and what member and whatnot, we hear a lot from our business members of vandalism, petty crime, the breaking into the waste bins, the cutting of locks, damaging, just the other day, the window of the medical clinic beside, that used to be Dr. Graf's clinic, was smashed in by a parent, young drunken fool with a potted plant. And I understand it's not necessarily that big crime ticket that's posing massive danger and threat to the individuals in our community, but it's costing business owners a lot of money. Our interest rate or insurance coverage is going up. Our requirements from our insurance companies are getting more and more with demands for upgraded security systems and security cameras. Not to mention the time it takes staff to repair and clean up the messes that are being made by these alleyway junkies, I call them, the two gentlemen on bicycles, that I'm positive you know exactly who we are talking about when I say the two guys on bikes.
Order, can we just refrain to the discussion and not put suggestions of people in your discussion? Thank you.
Apologize, I have no idea what you mean. But I'll continue. So the idea here is that what priority can we look at petty crime? Because again, I agree with you, or I understand the RCMP's position that it's not violent, nobody's getting hurt, but it's costing us a lot of money. So where do we see that as a priority in the local policing?
Okay, so under crime reduction, in terms of property crime, how we would look at that is developing activities and initiatives to address to identify those individuals and to ensure that they are complying with judicially enforced conditions. Such subjects who are committing petty crime, it could be regular repeat offenders in town, or it could be the one-offs. It just depends on the situation, the circumstances, and the location. So identifying them is the first course of action, and then once we've identified them, of course, there's an investigation. But then if we are in a position to lay charge, usually there's conditions that go along with that. And then once it gets to court, part of the sentence, I guess, is conditions. So for us, we do the front end, but then we also try to address compliance with conditions. And that's through the offender management program, and that's through warrant roundups and things of that nature. So that's usually how we do it. Now, the other thing too is if these offenses are mostly going on at night, right, which, the spray painting and the plant pot through the window, that kind of thing is at night, largely our members are out there. They are on patrol, but again, sometimes it's like they're on 50th Street, but it happens on 53rd Street. So they're not necessarily there. And if the alarm goes off, then, usually we're within 5 minutes of a response time. That's the bonus of having the detachment in Olds, is such a quick response. So, did I answer your question? It's under crime reduction, it's under property crime, and it's just our detachment developing initiatives to address those concerns. The other thing that I will throw out there too is I can either wait for an invitation or I can ask for a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce to have the same discussion with them.
Thank you for that answer. And Councillor Daly?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I forgot to mention before your traffic enforcement. I really appreciate it because your visibility was very much improved during that period of time. I personally have noticed several officers cruising the streets and stuff, and I appreciate that in regards to hearing our citizens' concerns as well. So my question is a little bit on the financial side of things in your page 18 of our agenda, which is your financial report. Just a generalized 30,000-foot look at it. Everything looks to be on track and seems to be good for the operations of the detachment going forward to the end of the quarter.
That is my understanding, that we are on track with our budget. It does not appear at this time that we're looking at overage.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time here with us today. And all right, you have a question? Okay, we'll be brief and then we'll thank you once we're done.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and perhaps a question equally for the staff sergeant as well as for the CAO. Just looking ahead over the next 4 to 6 weeks, I assume we'll be into a cycle of setting our policing priorities for the community. You mentioned the cycle goes to March 31, so I assume we're on the verge and council will be generating its own priority list? Or?
That's correct. I've submitted a letter through the director to the CAO to that effect, requesting priorities for next fiscal year.
CEO Williams?
Yes, thanks. Councillor Wilson, yes, the letter has been received last week, and it should be on March 4th's Committee of the Whole agenda.
Sorry, Councillor Daly?
Thank you, Mayor. I believe the letter's in our package today, is it not? Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I put like this year's priorities, that you can change them. Like, for example, crime reduction, you can specify property crime. Road safety, you can be specific, you know? So just because that's there doesn't mean that you have to just cut and paste. You can, okay?
A letter in our correspondence in our agenda that we will speak to if council so chooses.
For sure.
So thank you once again, Staff Sergeant Wright and Sergeant Poon. And we respect your time here today.
Thank you.
Take care. I'll ask for a motion, please. Councillor Ryan?
Thank you very much, Mayor Dahl. I move that council accepts the Royal Canadian Mounted Police quarterly report as presented.
Thank you. I will then call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We are now moving to our section of bylaws on page 21 of your agenda. This is our bylaw 2024-5 animal bylaw. I would like to put a motion on the floor to give second reading, and then at that time I will open the floor to open dialogue. Motion, please, for second reading. Well, thank you, Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council give second reading to Animal Bylaw 2024-05 as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. I'm going to open with a note that 15 emails have been received addressed to all council members over the weekend. Thank you to everyone for voicing your concerns to us. I am certain those that deal with social media, perhaps they've had more. Each member of council today will speak to a section of their choice for a limit of 2 rounds. Once all have shared on section in question, I will ask for a motion to amend if necessary. This process will continue for each section we review today. So at this point, I will now open the bylaw to council for any questions. Oh, I'm sorry. Our director, sorry. Go ahead and introduce Paul.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Again, with us for second reading is both Director Andrew and Sergeant Wright, and the sergeant's going to lead us through a brief presentation leading from the first reading's presentation and the subsequent discussion. And again, Paul, take it away.
Okay, technical abilities tested there. The PowerPoint is pretty much the same as last one, so just on the first one, it's the second reading now. And if we jump to page number 3, which are the 4 main topics that came out from council last time. Private animal control, and this just really summarises what we took away and kind of how we looked at it. So administration will investigate the potential of private animal control options, report back with availability and cost. Lifetime animal licenses create a fee structure to incentivise bylaw compliance and responsible ownership. Stray and abandoned animals, the town will not take responsibility for stray or abandoned animals, but will continue to promote foster homes and or agencies that will accept animals in need. And the last point, animals in prohibited areas. And that's just the clarification there that animals on leashes are still allowed on trails and within spectating areas. And just to clarify from, I think, what got misconstrued last time, we're not changing the number of cats. It's still at 6, has been at 6, and we're not increasing it to 6. And that just lays out the fee structure for it. It starts off at $400. Obviously, once we get that responsible ownership, which is the spay or neutering, tattoos, microchips, and proof of vaccinations, it drops down just to $100 lifetime fee, and that applies for cats and dogs. Pretty self-explanatory on that one. The town will not chase, capture, or hold abandoned animals. We'll still continue to advertise for and maintain the inventory of potential foster homes. We'll contact residents who have captured a stray with those foster homes. We did explore this last year with limited success, but we will still continue to explore the option of generating foster homes within the town of Olds. Animals in prohibited areas, no changes from the current bylaw. Pets are prohibited on sports fields such as ball diamonds or soccer fields, and off-leash pets are permitted in the viewing and walking areas of sports fields. Just some other matters that came up, regional efforts. I have been talking to my colleagues in various other municipalities about this, how we can proceed this as a potentially regional effort. Same with shelter space. It's been a continuing effort on my part since I've got here, trying to find locations for shelters, trying to find areas that will take in animals. And the last point there, the animal maximums proposed is just to increase it to 6 dogs, and the cats stay the same as 6.
Very much. We'll move over to Director Andrew.
Thank you. I just want to elaborate a little further on the last point there about the numbers of dogs and cats and where that came from, and giving some background. So when we were researching the proposal for this bylaw, we looked at a broad spectrum of other municipalities with what they're doing. The one thing that we have found consensus is that there is no consensus. There's a lot of differentiation amongst bylaws in different communities, and all for various reasons. Obviously, I think the gauge of their citizens is one, and there's one universal problem amongst all communities, is that there is a problem with shelter space and or abandoned animals and strays. Cats seem to be a universal contentious issue in most communities about free roaming cats. And feral cats, which is the bigger issue, is where you have cats that are breeding and living in a colony in various locations. So the piece that we look at is in us proposing the increase in the number of dogs. Again, the number of 6 cats was in the current bylaw. Just give you some background. Right now, in our current registrations that we have, we only have 12 households in the town of Olds currently with a registered number of 3 dogs. So out of all of our dog licenses, there's 12 households that have the maximum. We have 3 households with a registered number of 3 cats or more, and only one of them is 4. So we have 2 registered households with 3 cats and 1 with 4. So that's currently on the books. Now, Does that mean that that's everybody that's registered? No, I believe that there's probably households without that have animals that aren't registered. That is one of the issues and one of the driving factors why we were proposing increase to the number of dogs. Is the premise is that if there are homes that have more animals than what is currently allowed, then it does drive people to not register them. And so part of the responsible ownership aspect that we were trying to get to is that if we loosen up on restrictions, then it does promote people to come forward and register them. And the whole premise for us is to be able to keep track of these animals if they become on the loose or manage situations with complaints. Now, the number is completely up to debate, and it's for council to decide. We merely are trying to just propose what seems to be happening out there, and we can find a happy medium somewhere where we go. The big piece is, again, the intent for this is to ease up on red tape and restriction. The piece that we look at is when somebody has multiple dogs in a household, those are the households that are typically looking to help us with foster situations. And we have heard that there have been households that would be willing to foster dogs, but they would be in non-compliance with the bylaw having more than allowed. And so that is the conundrum that we're in, is that we are truly looking for a solution to our stray and abandoned dog situation, looking to people that will open their hearts and their homes to these animals to give them shelter. And so that is the universal problem that we do look at. And we certainly, as administration, are open to ideas. There is the potential for creating a special license that would go above whatever set limit of dogs or cats would be for foster situations, where there would be clemency, if you will, that if you are fostering a dog, that then that foster animal would not count towards the number of the required bylaw, which can work. It does create some administrative work or effort, I guess, to stay on top of it, is how we track it and continue to check up on it. But I think there's lots of different opportunities, and so perhaps council, through your correspondence with citizens on this, maybe you've heard something or you have ideas to propose yourself, and we're open to it. So that's just what I wanted to add on that last piece.
Thank you for clarity there, and I'll go to Councillor Daly, then Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor. And through you to Protective Services in regards to the presentation of this bylaw. Director Andrews has pretty much elaborated on what I thought would be a good example of a bylaw for in regards to the number of dogs in a house. 3 seems to be the number that people are zoning in on as far as a maximum when it comes to pet ownership and responsible pet ownership, and a manageable number of dogs for both the size of their yard and the size of their homes as well. I would be in full agreement for a hybrid type permit system that 3 dogs would be your limit, but with a special permit, whether you're fostering or whether you're, have a litter of pups or something that you're having trouble getting rid of or something like that, then a special permit applied to, and I would say a free permit, so that the bylaw officers know which household has the excessive number of dogs in, would be I would be in favor of that in an amendment to this bylaw.
Thank you. And we'll move to Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and I concur with the comments that Councillor Daly has made. As I stated at the last meeting, I was not in support of having the dog limit raised to 6 dogs per house. And I too could definitely support a hybrid method for those that wish to foster. And I understand that people who are pet owners typically are very responsible, and they open their homes to pets which become part of their family, and I can appreciate that. But I really think that the responsible thing here to do is to have 6 with a hybrid type of a model, where if they need to foster, they could potentially do that through that special licensing.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Wilson, and then Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and I will jump on the bandwagon as well as far as a permit to deviate from whatever number council sets. I would certainly be comfortable with a limit of 4 dogs. I try and balance the aspect of fostering and foster homes and providing a spot for abandoned dogs or rescue dogs. Try and balance that with the welfare of the dogs. And anybody that owns a pet certainly knows the cost of feeding a pet, caring for a pet, and getting medical attention. So when you start to get up to 6 dogs, that potentially could be quite a financial commitment that not everybody with a big heart may be in a position to handle. So I could certainly accept 4 dogs, and I could certainly accept the permit for a deviation or an exemption to that number, whatever number there is. There are municipalities that currently do that, Calgary for one, and across Western Canada, there are other municipalities that do have that permit for exemption. So I could certainly accommodate and handle those 2. Thank you.
Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I'm actually in support of Councillor Daly and Councillor Blatz's comments. I was not in favor of the 6 dogs last time, and I'm still not. I was a longtime dog owner. I mentioned earlier that I know exactly what it's like to have multiple dogs in my house. As a business owner who takes care of dogs in my house, I'm limited to 3 as my business license, and I believe that that's as many as I would ever want in my house, and I've only got the little tiny ones in my house. I know what it's like to have 3 small dogs in my house. To have 4 or 5 or 6 would just be chaos. You create a pack mentality when you have, the more dogs you have, the more danger you can create or a possible situation. I also do not believe in fact, that we should be allowing somebody to have 6 dogs off-leash in the off-leash park. I think that that's uncontrollable, and it shouldn't be part of this at all. It should be 3 as well, to go along with how many dogs some people should have. I do agree that we should have not necessarily a hybrid, but that people who want to foster dogs can register with the town of Olds and just be granted approval to have the more dogs in their house for a certain period of time, because typically a foster situation, you have a dog that comes in and then leaves. And also, the only time you would have 6 dogs at that point would be as if you had puppies outside of the fostering situation. And those dogs, again, will leave and have a limit of them allowing them to be there for 6 months. If you have difficulty giving away your puppies or selling your puppies. Those are my comments with regards to the number of dogs.
Thank you. Councillor Cummings?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have a couple of different things. Obviously, all in the timing. Obviously, we've received, I'll say 14 because I ignored one, email about this issue with the number of dogs in particular. All 14 respondents or emails we received talked about their disapproval of the number of dogs moving from 3 to 6. Reasons, though, I only got 4 reasons in this entire chain of emails, all of which are addressed in the bylaw. Under Section 61 mostly, Section 62, 63, talking about waste, barking, noise. The only one that wasn't covered at all in our bylaw is the environmental impact of increasing the dogs by a large number of CO2 emissions, dog farts. But enforcement was also one of them. So when the bylaw covers all of the issues that have been brought up here today and have been brought up by our constituents, it's not about the bylaw and the rules, it's about the enforcement of the bylaws and the rules. And that has been brought up on a lot of cases, that unless we're willing to fund the enforcement of our bylaws, it's difficult for the citizens to say, well, we're fixing the dog's noise problem, or we're going to fix the dog poop everywhere rules, or the dog park control rules, and stuff like that. So, again, like I said in the last meeting, 3 dogs, 6 dogs, it's all about the ownership of the dogs and the responsibility of the dogs. And if we can enforce that through the bylaw, which it clearly has caveats for that sort of thing, then it can be done. I don't believe we are doing that. So that's a different point, and that's about enforcement that's outside of the bylaw. That's about us as a council funding the support of enforcement. That's a different issue than the bylaw. But people are concerned about the number of dogs, and that's what we're here to do, is to pass on our constituents' concerns. So I agree with Councillor Daly. If we go into section 60 of the bylaw, which is on page 28 of our agenda today, 60 has the caveat there about the puppies, which Councillor Ryan brought up, that you can have as many dogs as you have up until they're 6 months old. And section 2 talks about Councillor Ryan's personal business of dog caring as business activities exemptions for the number of dogs, as long as you have a license. The other one we can put in there is section 3, for instance. A temporary exemption can be granted to allow for the fostering of pets beyond that identified in paragraph 60. So I think that satisfies the need that administration has brought forward for upping the number from 3 to 6 because of the concern of fostering. I agree with this. I understand the statistics, and I've talked to many people about this, that just because we changed the bylaw from 3 to 6, we're not going to have 6,000 more dogs in our neighborhoods. There's just not that many people that want 6 dogs, because 6 dogs is insane. I have 3 dogs, 3 variable sized dogs, and it's a challenge just with 3 dogs. And I think most people are reasonable enough to understand that 6 dogs is a bit crazy. The other issue I have is paragraph 49, which I think we can go up just a little bit more. One more page. So this was actually brought to me by a citizen that we have in our town that walks around town with her macaw, which, if you don't know, is a type of parrot or songbird, sits on your shoulder like a pirate would have and talks to its friends, and she has a leash for it. And this bylaw, 49, will now prevent her from doing that. And it's just the wording. I don't think it's intended to be that way. But there are citizens that walk around with their parrots and macaws, 2 of them that I know of. And there are some young folks that walk around with their lizards on their shoulders. Again, this bylaw would now prevent that because we don't issue licenses for birds and lizards. The definition that we have in this bylaw for animal includes birds and reptiles. So this is just kind of a catch phrase that I think needs to be reworded so that we can not prohibit these citizens from walking around with their birds and lizards. I think it's just an oversight. We don't really think about birds and lizards when we talk about animal bylaws. We think only about cats and dogs. But this was brought to me by a particular citizen who's concerned about her legal status, about walking around with her bird. So if we could maybe massage that a little bit in the amendments that are required, and then maybe work along with what Councillor Daly had talked about, having the exemption to meet administration's concerns about fostering.
Thank you. I'll have Councillor Walsh, and then I will speak to this section 60 of keeping of dogs and cats.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Dahl. Actually, I do like the wisdom of Councillor Daly, exemption for more than 3 dogs. That makes a lot of sense to me. Nothing magical about 3 dogs. I think I appreciate the administration's research, and, you know, it's a well-documented part of this process that they brought forward to us. I'm not a dog owner. I would probably never own a dog in a rural situation, especially if I'm working. I just think it's cruel for people to leave a dog outside for 6, 8, 10 hours. It's just not something I would ever want to do to a dog. It's the irresponsible pet owner that can cause the issues. It can be one irresponsible pet owner with 1 dog create havoc for neighbors. It's not 2, 3, 4, 5 dogs. It's just that 1 dog that's separation anxiety or lonely in the backyard that's causing issues for our residents. And anything we can do to promote responsible dog ownership is great, you know. And if people want to foster dogs and have 4 or 5 in their house, I think an exemption is the right way to go. And I think, as the stats show, people rarely or even own 3 dogs. So I have no issue, but I do appreciate Councillor Daly's wisdom.
Thank you. Now I'll speak as well. One thing that I agree with is actually Councillor Daly's comments that he shared on the floor as well. As it sits right now, we have 6 people. Well, pretty well, when we go for the vote, everybody can say what they feel. However, speaking, we will be working section by section for the sake of administration, who has asked that we vote separately on each section that we speak to. And this section is section 60, specifically to keeping of dogs and cats. For myself, I am very concerned about healthy dogs that families can't afford to feed and that are left abandoned. I agree with Councillor Daly's comment of the hybrid model. I would like to see 3 with the some sort of statement that a license, or however council chooses at the end of the day, whether they're, as Councillor Daly stated, would be a free license, just to take in these animals that are perfectly healthy rather than euthanize them. So I would also agree with 3 dogs. So at this time, Councillor Daly, since you brought that up, and it seems to me that we have almost unanimously agreed to that, but we'll find out. If you could put that motion on the table for this section, we'll vote.
Point of order?
Yes.
There is a motion on the floor.
Yes, but he's going to amend it. That's what I'm asking for, an amendment to this motion. Would you like to explain that, Legislative Clerk? Is this correct?
Thank you. I did ask for a motion for all amendments, and the motion that's, I don't think there was a motion made.
Or wait, well,
Sorry, I apologize for missing the motion for the second reading then. It's on the floor. I've asked for motions for amendments, and then at the end, when you're done, you would amend the first motion. Does that make sense? Amendments on the floor, I ask for votes. Thanks.
so for consent. So okay, go ahead, Councillor Blatz. Actually,
I was
okay.
just going to say, I was going to make the motion, but Councillor Daly did bring this up, and that we've all concurred with his comments. I think he should make the motion to amend
That's
to 3.
correct. Councillor Daly?
If I understand correctly, to go back to the original motion, Legislative Clerk, or do we make a motion for amendment on section 60? Okay. Okay. So I will move that we make a amendment to section 60 to reflect a 3-dog maximum household limit with a, sorry, that distracted me a bit there, with a permit to allow for over 3 dogs per household in circumstances that would permit, as in fostering, abandonment, or also maybe litters of dogs that can't, but it has to be approved by the town bylaw to move forward. Does that work? Because the amendment is a rewrite basically of a lot of section 60.
3 dogs are set for register, for foster.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're getting going. We will also adhere to some direction from administration. Director Andrew?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And I was just going to say, if council gives your general provision of what direction you want administration to take, then we'll obviously take this back, we'll wordsmith it, we'll legalize it and then bring it back for third reading. So as long as we understand what your general direction is and intent, then we'll put it into the bylaw for you for approval.
Thank you for that explanation and clarity for our legislative clerks. So we now have amended, have a motion for amendment to Section 60. So let's move forward down. Oh, of course. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And thank you for sharing that information. So I believe we're going to go forward, CEO Williams. Thank you.
So that was number of animals. There are still a couple matters from Sergeant Wright's presentation. Is there any other thoughts of what one you want to tackle next?
I understand. So again, we're going through each section that councillors would like to speak to. So I believe I saw Councillor Ryan first, or who did I see? Ryan first and Councillor Cummings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. So then we can bring up another topic in.
Please
within
just state
okay.
the section you're speaking to. That's all we're going to be speaking to at one time.
I'm not sure what the section is, but it's with regards to this lifetime license. So I'm not sure exactly what the section is on that one, but.
Topic is fine.
Topic is fine? Okay, thank you, CEO Williams. My concern about the lifetime, and I see where you're going with this, my concern with the lifetime is that, first of all, I'm not exactly sure why we would want to change something that is creating revenue for us. In fact, it would be far greater if somebody owned paid $25 a year for 10 years compared to having a dog for 10 years and only paying $100. I mean, you're talking about over double amount of money that they would be paying. So we're always talking about sources of revenue, and this is a source of revenue. Why would we change that? I don't understand the idea behind it, except that other communities have gone this way, and so we should. But I don't agree with that premise. I don't think we should be following other communities just because one is doing it one way and we're doing it another. I've paid my dog license every single year. My dog's 9 years old. I've paid a lot more than $100 so far. But I'm not just speaking about myself. I'm talking about other people within this community who may move into the community only with an intent to only be in this community for 1 year. Why would they pay for a lifetime membership, lifetime license for their dog when they only are going to be here for a year or maybe 2 years? I would like to see something along the lines that Councillor Blatt suggested last meeting, which was a hybrid idea where people could still pay year to year or pay a lifetime license if they're going to be living in town for a long time. That would make total sense. They'd save money. However, ultimately, I'm going back to the revenue source, and I'm not sure why we would want to go to something that would reduce the amount of revenue. People who are going to license their dog are going to license them no matter what. That's responsible pet ownership. It'd be the same for cats as well as dogs. I don't think it'd make much difference to me whether I was licensing it for a lifetime or for year to year if I was a responsible pet owner, except on the circumstance that I mentioned with regards to if you're only in town for a couple of years. That doesn't make any sense to buy a lifetime license. Thanks.
Thank you, CEO Williams.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Dahl. And I'm going to let either Sergeant Wright or Justin chime in here. Certainly the revenue piece will be affected, but that's not the primary thing we were concerned with moving forward. And since Paul is better to speak to our rationale behind this, I'll turn it over to you on our raison d'etre for the lifetime proposal.
Sorry, being English, I'm not great with French. So anyway, there is one of the many reasons we look to doing a lifetime license. There is an operational reason for that, which is probably more suitable for personally what I say a closed kind of answer to that question here. But there was a distinct operational issue that's come up certainly since the tail end of last year and into this year. However, the lifetime license was to try and encourage people again to be responsible. We know there's a large number of animals out there that aren't licensed for us, and if we look at the figures just we're getting at the moment, it is pretty low. So we want to just kind of generate that and make it a lifetime. Is it cheaper over the lifetime? It is cheaper, but we hopefully will generate some money. Again, there is one legal operational reason which I can go into. I think it personally is better for a closed session, personally. That may not answer your question, I'm sorry, but.
Well, thank you for that. It's to me, it's just, it just doesn't make sense to go in this direction. I think paying $25 a year is pretty simple. It's pretty low. That's a very low number. And if somebody would say, okay, now you have to pay 100, my dog's 10 or 12 years old, I might not want a license. So you might actually be deterring people from licensing.
Director Andrew?
Yes, thank you. Excuse me. So the whole premise is, again, when we propose this, that obviously there would have to be a grandfather clause in, so, you know, current residents that have been licensing their dogs willingly as responsible ownerships would be exempt from that fee. Yes, there is lots of issue that can come up with, if I move to the community, my dog is this old, then do I risk that? The hard part is us determining age of a dog. So to say, well, it's 10 years old and I'm not going to pay the $100, you know, there is administrative process that's created if we opt to go with a hybrid model on it. But the biggest one is that and this is again from our research that we found with other municipalities trying to promote responsible ownership, is that if you dangle the carrot, that if you do what the municipality wants, which is ultimately we want to create an environment where the dogs are registered so that we know that they have a home. So if they become stray or errant, or, you know, get out of their yard, they're tattooed or microchipped so that we can rehome them quickly. We want to make sure that they're fixed so that we're not promoting the proliferation of animals, as Bob Barker used to say every day on his show. And then obviously healthy in the fact that they've been vaccinated. So that's the structure where, you know, it starts with a high rate and it comes down. And if people promote and do that willingly, then it's a reward for the responsible, is ultimately what it comes down to, is that you've done all the things that we as a municipality that want to register animals for have asked, and so therefore you're rewarded with a one-time fee and you go away from that. Again, that's council's prerogative to decide whether that's a valid avenue or not. Again, there is administrative things that come into play with the annual license, and again, a conversation can be had that we would propose that we would go into a closed session because it is harmful. It discloses operational procedures of our enforcement process that we wouldn't have in an open conversation with council, but that's council's decision, public, sorry. So that would be at council's discretion if they wanted to discuss that one particular item, and go from there.
Thank you for the update to that. I have Deputy Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Dahl, and I'm just wondering whether my question is, again, best left in this possible closed session. It was simply going to be through you to the CAO, just to talk on, from an administration, from an internal perspective, setting aside the whole bylaw enforcement and everything. How do we administer and track the licenses? Because I'm coming at it from a slightly different perspective of efficiency, streamlining, and keep it simple. And so if that's a discussion that's best left to a closed session, fine, I can wait. But I'm simply looking, how do we do these licenses? Do we send out annual reminders? What's the task involved year to year? And if we go to a lifetime license, does that streamline and bring efficiency?
Thanks for the question. The annual process is mostly advertising that, you know, annual pet licenses are due by February 28th, and this is the fee, this is your options to pay. And then we see those numbers vary year to year, which obviously due to people moving away, pets passing away, and people choosing not to comply. The administrative savings on this would be the customer service end. speaking to this office, of course, largely, is that the transaction that occurs with people coming in once a year for how many dog licenses, cat licenses, 400, 500, is obviously time consuming. So that would be the primary administrative savings end.
Thank you. We're still pertaining to Section 53. Councillor Cummings?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure where it's coming from, but it's been a trend for quite some time where licensings and renewals are being stretched out for administrative ease. We saw that with the passport going from 5 years to 10 years. I think you can actually get a 20-year passport now. It's ridiculous. No, just to 10. We saw that with the driver's license renewals. We've seen that with umpteen things it is more convenient as a dog owner. If I only have to do it once, I'm happy as a camper. I don't know the phrase. I'm not going to use it. But it would make my life a lot easier as a homeowner or a pet owner of 5 pets, that I don't have to come in every year and renew my 5 pets, or my one passes away and gets a new one. I don't know. It just seems easier for me. So I don't have an issue with the once in a lifetime. I understand the concerns. Oh, you only moved to Olds for 1 year. Well, suck it up, princess. You moved to Olds, to a new community for 1 year, and you got to pay a person who moves to my town for 1 year to live here and brings their pets. There's a cost to short-term living, and that's what it is. You pay the fees at the municipality you move to, and then you pay the fees at the next municipality that you move to, and the next municipality that you move to. That's just life choices. Those are choices individuals make, and they have costs, and we can't protect everybody from those costs. It just doesn't seem realistic to me that the 1 or 2 people that would fit into that category should manipulate our concepts of how we do this for the rest of the community. So it doesn't seem to be an issue to me at all.
Thank you, and we'll go, is there anyone that was over here I didn't see? Okay, back to Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and I just have a question. I will acknowledge I'm probably the least parliamentarian of my esteemed colleagues around the horseshoe here, but we've heard reference a closed session. Is it appropriate, necessary at this time to go into a closed session? And if it is, I would make that motion. If it helps move this discussion or anything else forward relative to, the animal bylaw.
I will just, was there somebody else? Oh, I would go to Councillor Daly first, and thank you for that question. I'll start with Councillor Daly and then complete your question.
Thank you. I've got a bit of a 2-part question here. The first part to Sergeant Paul is, what is our purpose here? What is the purpose behind the licensing? Is it to develop a registry for pet owners in the town of Olds, or is it a revenue generator?
I would say it's, I'm going to use the company line, it's that responsible ownership. So if we do have a dog or a cat that goes missing, we can get that cat or dog back to the owner, and part of that work, part of the licensing kind of, I suppose, pays for that service that we're providing out there to get it back in its simplest terms.
Okay, so I understand there's about 400 licenses from CO Williams, so that equals out to about $10,000. If we're going to have a true discussion here, what if we're thinking outside the box and we say 0 costs for registering your pet with the town of Olds?
Well, thank you for reading that, and with the question of Deputy Wilson, it seems to me that this section, at this time of discussion with council, definitely should be brought back to council. It's with regards to lifetime license. I've heard grandfather clause be built in. A very good recommendation, Councillor Daly. Everybody around the table had their comments shared. But with respect, I believe in and correct me if I'm wrong, my council members, that with respect, Director Andrew is requesting to have council seek to understand the background with us. I would prefer if Section 53 was amended to state that we're bringing this back to council. And then we can resolve where we're at with what needs done, because we don't have the evidence-based facts that are trying to be shared around this table today. Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, but I believe that Director Andrews said we could go into a closed session so he could provide that information right now. Just bringing it back at a further date, we still won't have that information unless we go into a closed session. So I would support Councillor Wilson's comment about making a motion to go in camera.
Would be the FOIP number for us to move in camera, or in closed?
17.
If Deputy Mayor Wilson would like to make a motion at this time to move in closed session.
Thank you, Mayor, and yeah, I would make that motion that at 2:26, council go into a closed session specific to Section 17, information harmful to personal privacy, and with all those from council and administration remaining.
Thank you. That's the motion on the floor, and we have one member of staff here. I'd have to ask you to leave temporarily, please. Thank you. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. And just shut the door behind you, please. Yes, go ahead. So we're just seeking to understand where it is. Can we just have a 2-minute recess? Yes. I'm calling a recess for 5 minutes. A recess for 5 minutes.
Let's hear what
Welcome back. And with regards to Section 53, there'll be no amendment, and I'm asking for the next section of business. Councillor Cummings?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So earlier I had talked about Section 49 of the bylaw, which talks about all animals requiring to wear a license in public, where we define animal as all birds, reptiles, amphibians, and mammals, excluding humans and wildlife. But we only license cats and dogs. And the restriction on this, or the concern that's been raised by a citizen, was that she would not be allowed to walk around town with her macaw because we don't license them. So my amendment that I request is we simply remove Section 49. Allow me a moment to justify removing it completely. If we look at Section 53, Part 2, 53, Part 2 states that, well, 53 is the animal licensing, that we issue a license for the lifetime. Section 2 says, shall always be worn by the animal when the animal is off the owner's property, which is the exact same thing as 49, without the restriction on what types of animals. It's, if you get a license, because you're required to have a license, you must have that pet carry that license or wear the license in public. So I did speak with the Sergeant Wright about this, and I believe we concur that 49 becomes superfluous with 53.2 in place, and it then allows those pet owners that don't have animals that are licensed, like birds and lizards, who can still take them out in public. So that's my motion, is to have the bylaw amended by removing chapter or paragraph 49.
So we have a motion from Councillor Cummings to remove Section 49 from the bylaw. That would be the amendment. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. All right, we're moving forward now. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and I have raised already number 66, page 29, with regards to the number of dogs in an off-leash. I think 6 is way too many in an off-leash area. If you're walking them on a leash, that's one thing, but once they're off a leash, can you control 6 dogs running around? I highly doubt it, unless they are very, very well-trained, exceptionally well-trained. I would rather see this go down to 3 dogs.
Thank you. I'd open up for any comments. Councillor Cummings.
I agree with Councillor Ryan wholeheartedly. As a dog owner of 3 dogs that I take to the dog park on a daily basis, I'll say right off the bat that we have control of our dogs 99% of the time, but nobody can have control of all of their dogs 100% of the time. The more dogs, the less likely that happens. Even Cesar Millan has a difficult time controlling 6 dogs at the same time. So I'd be perfectly happy to vote on that amendment to back to 3 dogs.
Thank you. I just need a little bit of help because I don't have animals. When you go to an off-leash park, all I know is what I see, and there's dogs with owners everywhere. So are you saying that if the first 3 people go, they get to stay there and the rest have to wait? Or I don't.
No, the idea is that when you're there with your 3 dogs, the rules at the park clearly state that you must be able to recall your dogs. You have to have control of your dogs at all times, even though they're not on a leash. So the more dogs you have, the more challenging that becomes. And even professional dog handlers would have a difficult time with 6 dogs in control at the same time.
Thank you. Much clearer. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and I'm not too fussed changing it to 3. My only comment would be from my days going to the dog leash. There's people that have 1 dog there and can't control 1 dog. So the fact that you have 6 dogs does not mean that you can't control your 6 dogs. Sometimes those 6 dogs are the most well-behaved dogs versus the 1 dog that isn't. So.
Thank you very much. So we have a motion to amend Section 66 on the floor. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Moving along, any other sections from any other councillors in this bylaw? Very good. Seeing none, we will now move back to the main motion for second reading by Councillor Daly as amended. And now I will call for the vote. Those in favor? As amended. That's carried. Everybody got their hands up. Very good. Thank you very much for all your... Oh, okay. I'm going to restate that and recall. Those in favor? Those opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Thank you very much for all your help today. And we will be moving forward now. Okay. Page 62, please. This is item 4B. And will we be getting Kyle back? He's on his way. Thank you, Kyle. So our municipal land use planner, Kyle Sloan, will be joining us. Welcome. As soon as everybody's done talking, all my council members, I'll welcome you and open the floor to bylaw 2024-12 land use bylaw 0123 amendment. The floor is yours.
Thank you. This bylaw amendment was received as an application from the property owner and developer they're working with to rezone the parcel at 5200 58th Street from urban reserve to the R4 district, which is a manufactured home district, to accommodate a new development of prefabricated or factory-built dwelling units. The parcel is located within the Uptown Olds Area Redevelopment Plan, or ARP. The future land use concept of this ARP identifies this parcel just for residential use, but there are policies that go a little bit more into detail, saying that it's intended for medium to high density residential for residential parcels south of 54th Street, which this one is. We do have a definition for medium density residential, but we don't for high. There's another policy that states policy, sorry, I'm missing the other one, but there was another policy that seemed to say, where is it? Sorry. The land use concept map identifies it as medium to high density residential, sorry. And then the policy states medium to high density is envisioned north of 54th Street, not south. And low density is envisioned south of 54th Street. The R4 district is neither medium nor low density, as it is its own. The density in the district is in between. We feel, our administration feels that the R4 district is appropriate to align with both of those considerations. And the recommendation is to give first reading to bylaw amendment 2024-12. And actually, as a reminder, the land use bylaw does say that for land use bylaw amendment applications that come from applicants, from the property owner, council shall give first reading. Any questions?
Does council have questions at this moment? Thank you for sharing that information for council. I would then ask for a motion. We'll go in two separate ones. I'll have the first one. Okay, who's first? Go ahead, Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that bylaw number 2024-12, amendment to land use bylaw 01-23, be given first reading as presented, and I think all of council is very pleased to see this come forward.
Thank you very much, Councillor Blatz. I will then call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. And to set the public hearing date, please, Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Monday, March the 25th, 2024, at 1 p.m. in council chambers at 4512 46th Street in Olds be set as a date, time, and place for a public hearing on bylaw number 2024-12.
Thank you, Councillor Cummings. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Sloan. And page 73, please. This is item 4C, and again, bylaw 2024-13. Go ahead, Mr. Sloan.
Thank you again. This land use bylaw amendment is initiated from administration. Recently, the town launched initiatives to encourage owners of existing unpermitted secondary suites to bring their suites into compliance with the land use bylaw and the building code. In hearing from residents and property owners since then, a number of the inquiries we've received are for suites or units that are within duplexes. The land use bylaw doesn't currently allow for these suites to be legalized because of the definition that we have, which specifies detached dwelling. But in speaking with our building inspector, the building code does allow suites to exist within duplexes. So part of this amendment is to bring our land use bylaw in alignment with the building code to allow secondary suites within duplexes that are on their own titled parcel. So a duplex that has both units on one piece of land cannot have suites, but if a duplex is subdivided with a party wall in between, so that each one is owned individually, there could be a secondary suite in those. And that's the ruling from the building code, so we're looking to align the land use bylaw with that. The second piece for this is that we generally consider the R2 district to be higher density than the R1 land use district. But our regulations for suites are more restrictive in R2 right now than they are in R1. Currently, secondary suites in the R2 district can only be approved within the principal dwelling as a basement suite or attached suite at grade. We can't allow detached garage suites or garden suites in R2, but we can in R1. And we're not sure this came in back in 2009 when suites were introduced to the bylaw. At first, it was considered that perhaps this is because of R1 lots being larger than R2 lots, so there's more space for the detached dwelling. But the R2N district, which is for smaller lots than R2, allows the same detached suites that R1 allows. So it's only the R2 district that is more restrictive. So a piece of this amendment is to create more flexibility for the type of suites allowed in the R2 district. So the recommendation, again, is that bylaw 2024-13 be given first reading as presented, and that March 25th be set as the public hearing date.
Thank you for the facts in this regard. I would start with questions. Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Kyle, for that information. It's kind of interesting because as you drive around town, there's a plethora of duplexes with basement suites in them. I mean, a lot, especially in my neighborhood. Every duplex in my part of town seems to have a basement suite, and they're divided into 4 basic apartments. When you said you've gotten a lot of correspondence from homeowners and whatnot, can you define that a little bit for me, like 10 or 20? Because it just seems like I thought that was normal. I thought that was actually permitted because there's just so many of them.
Thank you. It would more 3 or 4. But yes, in some cases we have approved things like this, but one last year, for instance, instead of calling it a duplex with secondary suites, we had them apply for a 4-plex, that was the case where new owners bought a duplex that had illegal suites, wanted to legalize it. We couldn't do so as a duplex with suites, so they applied for a 4-plex and made the conversion that way. So some may have been done like that.
Thank you. Any other questions? I would ask then for a motion, and we'll start with Deputy Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that bylaw number 2024-13, amendment to land use bylaw 0123, be given first reading as presented.
Thank you, Deputy Wilson. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. And public hearing date, please. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Monday, March 25th, 2024, at 1 p.m. in the council chambers at 4512 46th Street, Knowles, be set as a date, time, and place for a public hearing on bylaw 2024-13.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. And thank you for your time today, Mr. Sloan. We will be moving to new business now on page 77 of your agenda. 5A, Olds Fiber Limited Interest Forgiveness Request, and we have Director Corporate Services, Sheena Linderman, here with us, but we'll go through CAO Williams first. Am I correct?
Oh, sure. Today we have Director of Corporate Services, Shane Linderman, with us to, no, so as the RFD states, OFL has passed their 2024 operating budget with a condition, and well, not necessarily a condition, but an ask to the town that in order to meet their cash flow obligations, without dipping into further loan obligations, temporary interest relief on a portion of the loan owed to the town of Olds. This portion is town supported, meaning it's not owed by the town to a secondary financial institution. It's loaned from our internal cash. So forgiving the interest, although there will be an opportunity cost to not having that money theoretically working for us, there will be no net cash loss to the town, although there will be budget implications. So Sheena will provide a bit more background and perhaps an option, secondary option that came forward by way of question earlier this week.
Thank you. So I just will, CAO covered most of it, but just to reiterate that it would be a reduction in our interest revenue of $160,000, so that would be the budget implication. Another option that was brought forward was to approve it in two parts. So today, just the one payment, which would happen on April 17th, which would be about $80,500, and then see where OFL is at further on in the year, October, and approve it, the second part at that point.
Thank you. I open to questions from council. Thank you for sharing that information. I'm seeing none, so I would ask for a motion at this time. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. So before I make the motion, though, how do we want to proceed with this? Do we want to make this motion and either defeat it, or do we want to just do it as the first portion only today? Is that the motion? So then I would be making this as $80,500 being the town's portion only for April 17th, 2020.
It will be $80,496.32.
Thank you, Director Linderman. Okay, that's fine. Thank you then. Legislative Clerk, will this be as amended then? No, okay. It's just a new motion?
It's a new motion,
All
so
right,
go
perfect.
go
Okay,
forward. Thank you, Councillor Blatz.
All right. So I move that the interest in the amount of $80,496.32, that being the town's portion of the interest on the Olds Fiber Limited promissory note, be forgiven for the April 17th, 2024 payment. Loan payments.
Payment, and that's correct. Okay, is everybody clear on what you're voting on? Very good. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, Councillor Blatz, for that motion. And Corporate Sheena? Change of date. Let's move down to page 78, please, item 5B. 5B. Okay, I would just like to note before we get started that I did send all council members an email and asked if they were interested to please forward to me their name prior to today. I received 2. I am cognizant of areas of councillors' workloads, and the 2 names that I received, so we will be going to ballot, are Councillor Heather Ryan and Councillor Darren Wilson. So Marcy will be bringing, yes, Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I'll withdraw. The reason why is I think Darren would do, Councillor Wilson would do a great job, so I will withdraw.
Thank you very much. And for the viewers, we've just had a withdrawal from Councillor Ryan, so the motion will be to appoint, today he's Deputy Mayor Wilson, but it'll be Councillor Ryan, I believe, or Councillor Wilson, as we call him, Wilson. May I have a motion, please? You can't appoint yourself. Yeah, you can. You want to?
Sorry, no, I was just going to...
Question?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Dahl. I was just going to thank Councillor Ryan for the opportunity and the kind words. They don't usually come directed at me from her, so thank you.
We really love each other. We really do get along well. Anyways, Councillor Cummings, motion, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I move that council appoint Councillor Darren Wilson to the Community Futures Central Alberta Board effective February 26, 2024, for a term ending at the annual organizational meeting of the Town of Olds held in October of 2025.
Thank you, Councillor Cummings. Is everyone clear on the motion?
So that, sorry, yeah, is that supposed to be 2025? So it's a 2-year appointment? Yeah. Okay, just odd.
Thank you, Councillor Cummings. And now, if everyone is clear, I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Congratulations, Councillor Wilson, on your new appointment to this new board.
Thank you.
We will move along now to page 79, please, item 6A, and that's Chief Administrative Officer Report. CAO Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Just a few things here. Obviously, the action item list is there with a couple new items since last time added, one of which you just completed, so thank you for that. And with the drought, as I think most of you, if not everyone, received the email from Minister Schultz that there is a provincial update via webinar next week, which certainly relevant staff here will attend, and the respective committees at the Mountain View Regional Services Water Commission are still working, and so we haven't forgotten about this issue. We just want to get a bit more clarity from the province and wait for that regional body to provide initial direction, and then I believe council can take it up from there. It's coming soon, but we still have probably a month before I would say a solid direction is needed from council. So snow clearing, emergent update. It did snow yesterday into this morning, for those of you unaware. We will commence Purple Road clearing approximately 4 a.m. tomorrow morning, so that's the uptown area. So we do ask residents to not park on those purple streets, including 50 and 51st Avenues and the subsidiary streets running east and west. And water leaks. Residents along 61st Avenue will have noticed a presence in their neighborhood the last few weeks by town crews, and that will continue, I was going to say tomorrow, but given our operational delays with snow, it may push into later this week. We are investigating several leaks there, and that's owed to the efforts of our utility staff and management and the new leak detection technology we are implementing there. So it doesn't sound that great or look that great having the same street dug up in various distances from each other, but it is in fact progress, and we're hoping to find we do identify smaller problems that we do believe will have a positive impact on the town. So that's all I have for now.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions for our CAO? I would ask for a motion, please. Councillor Ryan, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that the Chief Administrative Officer report be accepted for information.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, very good. We are moving to page 81, item 7A, correspondence and information. And reminding you again, it will be a motion as amended with item C. And I will just share with you what item C is, and then I'll pass it to the recording clerk after the meeting here. It's a letter that I received late on February 23rd from Alberta Municipal Affairs, Minister Rick McIver, with regards to grant application under the 2024 Fire Services Training. The Town of Olds has been approved for a grant of $10,065 to carry out training as outlined in the conditional grant agreement. So that is now included in correspondence, so you're aware it's there. May I have a motion to put this on the floor? Council, question? Yes. We could still put it on the floor if you'd like. Go ahead, Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that correspondence and information report ending February 26, 2024 be received for information as amended.
Thank you, and sorry, Councillor Cummings, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to clarify earlier when we were talking about the letter from Staff Sergeant Wright. That is coming on another agenda to have that discussion about that, though. And you had mentioned a date. Can you just remind me what that date was?
Yeah, I'll remind myself quickly, and then I'll remind you, which was March the 4th, a week from today is the plan.
Thank you. Thank you for that note, and we'll go back to the motion as amended. All those in favor? That's carried. All right. Reports from council boards, commissions, and committees, page 85, item 8A. Very good. All right, we'll go ahead and put a motion on the floor, and then we can move on from there from around the table. Deputy Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Excuse me, I make the motion that the reports from council, authorities, boards, committees, and commissions ending February 26, 2024 be received for information.
Thank you very much. In the agenda, we have reports from Councillors Blatz and Heather, and I have, what's funny? And Councillor Heather Ryan. Thank you. It's a long meeting. I'll switch it over to you if you want to finish it for us. All right. I will be asking, I have included a report to our legislative clerk. I'll just go around the table, and I'd be happy to do mine last. So I have Councillor Cummings. Would you like to report?
Certainly, thank you, Madam Mayor. So I did meet with the Chamber of Commerce. There's one thing of note. There was the Mountain View and Neighbors Women in Business celebration for International Women's Day on March the 8th. I did mention that to Council at our priority setting workshop. But for those of you, if there's anybody out there listening, that's at the Pomeroy Inn and Suites. It is from 11 a.m. till 3 p.m. It's a lunch. There's some speakers and some awards. So it's a pretty interesting event to attend, especially, of course, if you're a woman or interested in business in general. The Chamber did want to reiterate its concerns that it has as an organization of business owners in our community, that housing is still one of their biggest priorities moving forward as an economic development issue that they're facing in their attempts to get workers. And they did want to focus on that a little bit, that it's not just housing in general, it's housing affordable to their level of workers. They don't employ hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of salaried employees, so they're looking for that type that we saw today in our land use bylaw amendment coming through. Did attend another Alberta Health Services David Thompson Health Advisory Committee meeting. This time it was discussing Alberta Health Services mental health programs in our community. A lot of good information was presented there. And we attended, everyone here attended the priority setting workshop last week. Hopefully we can get some direction over to our administration on how we want to see things progress forward. That was all I did last month.
Thank you for your report. I would ask Councillor Daly, would you like to report?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I also submitted a written report to legislative clerk to be included in the minutes of this meeting. I attended the Olds Healthcare Attraction Retention Committee meeting on 2 occasions, on January 16th and February 13th, where our focus has been on showing appreciation for the healthcare workers that we do have in the community, and also attracting new healthcare workers to our community. And there's several initiatives that are taking place as far as looking at doing programs in the high school for enticing young individuals to get into the field of healthcare. Also working with the Olds Foundation, Olds Health Hospital Foundation, working collaboratively with them as well, putting on programs for youth as well. And so that's moving forward into the future. I also attended the David Thompson Health Authority Advisory Committee meeting via web. And so, yeah, it was quite interesting. The theme was, of course, community mental health. And it was interesting that that came up in our Attraction and Retention Committee meeting as well as locally, that there is a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety going on within our healthcare locally as well. And so it was a very fitting topic. I attended the Economic Development Advisory Committee meeting as well on February 6th, so we're just starting to get our feet underneath of us and starting to put together working committees in the different areas of economic development within our community. And then, of course, I attended the Alberta Immunities webinar and also the CAO question review and so forth. So, yeah, that about does it for me. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Daly. Councillor Walsh?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I attended all regular council meetings, and it's been a light month for me. I've EDAC, also an Economic Development Action Committee. Basically, out of that was review of the business retention expansion survey that will be happening in the community shortly. Also, February 21st, I attended a library meeting. That was last Wednesday. The milestone coming out of that was over 90,000 in circulation for the year, and that's the highest this library has ever done ever in history. So that was an interesting bookmark. Plus the AGM will be this coming month in March 20th is the library AGM. It'll be interesting to see who shows up at that. It's been happening around the province that people are showing up who are wanting to protest books that most libraries are now putting into the system. So it happened last time around. We'll see what happens this time around. I forewent the Parkland Regional Library System Board meeting, which was last Thursday. Instead, I attended the priority sessions that all of council attended, and I agree with Councillor Cummings that some good stuff should come out of that. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and I represent council on the OFL board. The OFL board continues to meet monthly and plan the strategic path forward for ONET. Of note, the implementation conversion of the TV platform is progressing extremely well. I think a couple of weeks ago, they were about 75 or 80% complete on the conversion, so that has been much welcomed for our subscribers and customers. And on the softer side, I had the pleasure of representing the town at the 42nd and 39th Farmer and Farmerettes Bonspiel. Really enjoyed that. And as well, just recently completed was the ACAC Men's Volleyball Championships, which I attended. And again, really enjoyed that. So that's it.
And thank you for attending on my behalf, Deputy Mayor. And myself, last but least, I will, let's see, on January 25th, I joined the Mountain View Regional Water Services Commission incident report with the town. February 1st, along with the MLA, the 64th Alberta Firefighters Champion Curling Bonspiel. Greetings along with Mayor Nathan Cooper. It was very well attended, and they certainly did enjoy themselves. Unfortunately, we had a little bit of power outage at that time, but they kept all busy. February 6th, Olds District Chamber of Commerce meet and greet with businesses. I learned of new businesses in town, and I felt the venue was very good. February 13th, Science Fair, Holy Trinity School volunteered as a judge for students, and it was their very first science project fair, and it was full house. And the students did an excellent job, and they'll be doing another one next year. And February 16th, the South Red Deer Regional Wastewater Commission Strategic Planning Session I was invited to. It was held at the Red Deer County with board members, shared a half day of presentation with members, and they were very well put together. And I'm thankful to be able to attend to that. February 21st, the Town of Old Strengths and Weaknesses and Opportunities and Threats, a SWOT workshop with all council. And the purpose of that was to analyze the current state of our municipality and make more informed decisions based on broader understanding of risk, challenges, and potential. That's an annual, as well as on February 22nd, the Town of Old's Priority Setting Strategic Workshop was held with council and management. We did a review of our vision, mission, and values, along with revisiting the current 2022 to 2032 strategic plan. Council and management held both days in the Town of Olds to reduce costs. Just a small update, I was unable to attend on Friday the Mid-Sized Towns Caucus with all, it was a Zoom meeting, and the report will be brought next week. I will be looking for updates on the appointments made and report back to council. And that's everything for myself. If there's nothing else, okay, we have a motion on the floor right now from Deputy Mayor Wilson. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. We will be moving for item 9 to a closed session. And at this time, I would ask for a motion, please, to move to closed. Deputy Mayor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that council go into a closed session at 3:34. Item 1, FOIP, disclosure harmful to personal privacy, council remuneration review committee appointments, and item 2, FOIP section 16, disclosure harmful to business interests of a third party, the Water Commission update, with all those in attendance remaining.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you very much for your patience. We will now rise and report. I'm sorry if I'm screaming. I'll turn my mic down. And I'm looking for a motion from Councillor Blatz, please.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council accept the CAO report on the Mountain View Regional Water Services Commission matter and direct the CAO to send a letter to the commission requesting further cooperation.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz. I will now,
Pardon me, I amend
Go
that
ahead.
just a little. Commission board. Oh, okay, pardon me. Let me rephrase that if I might. I move that council accept the CAO report on the Mountain View Regional Water Services Commission matter and direct the CAO with the mayor's signature to the commission board requesting further cooperation.
thank you for that. I could accept and understand that, and I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council appoint Debbie Bennett, Donna Harding, and Patrick Martins to the Council Remuneration Review Committee effective February 26, 2024. And do you want the second part as well? Or you wanted two motions? Okay, thank you.
Do you want the second? No, yes, you could forward that as well as you're speaking. Do we need a separate motion?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I just
I think
asked
it's talking about a different topic, so I'll
Yes,
vote on
it's
this
gotta be
one.
two
That's
separate
correct.
motions,
It has to be
yeah.
separate. So the first motion, all in favor? That's carried. Now I'd like a motion for the second part. Councillor Walsh, did you have your hand up? I'm sorry, I can't see it.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Move that council change the Council Remuneration Review Committee to report back to council on or before May 27th, 2024. That's a regular council meeting with recommendations on policy 106C on council remuneration and benefits to be established for members of council effective once the council is elected in 2025.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh, for that motion. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much, and I thank everyone for your time and your patience with us today. And I will adjourn the meeting at 4:26 p.m.